The massive alien ship moved slowly through space toward Earth. Its metal hull gleamed silver under the distant sun's light. Inside the ship, Commander Zethkara stood before a large screen showing the blue planet ahead. His reptilian scales shifted color from green to yellow, showing his nervousness. "Sir, we are getting close to the Forbidden World," said his assistant, a smaller alien with 4 arms. "Should we send the message now?" Zethkara looked at the ancient book in his clawed hands. The pages were made of metal and covered in strange writing that glowed with soft light. This was the Codex of the Makers, passed down through his people for thousands of years. Every space-traveling race had a copy. Every leader knew the rules written inside. "Read me the law again," Zethkara said quietly. His assistant opened his own copy and read aloud. "No harm must come to the humans. They are the protected children of those who made us all. Any who hurt them will face the wrath of the sleeping guardians. This law cannot be broken. This law cannot be changed." Zethkara nodded slowly. His people had found many dead worlds where great battles had happened long ago. On each world, they found the same message carved into stone and metal, always the same warning about humans, always the same promise of terrible punishment for those who disobeyed. "Send the message," he ordered. "But make sure we use the old formal words. We must show proper respect." Far away on a space station orbiting Earth's moon, Captain Jake Murphy was drinking coffee and reading reports. It was a quiet night shift at Luna 7 Defense Station. Nothing ever happened out here. Earth had been alone in space for so long that most people forgot the station even existed. Then every alarm in the station started screaming. Jake dropped his coffee cup and ran to the main control room. The screens showed a huge ship approaching from deep space. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Much bigger. "Sir, we're getting a transmission," called out Sergeant Lisa Grant from her station. "It's coming from that ship." "Put it on speaker," Jake said, his heart beating fast. The voice that came through the speakers was strange and deep. It spoke perfect English, but with an odd accent. "Greetings to the noble humans of Terra. We are the Saurian Starfleet. We come in peace and ask permission to approach your sacred world. We swear by the ancient laws that no harm will come to any human. We bring gifts and friendship as commanded by the Makers who came before." Jake stared at the speaker in shock. Sacred world, ancient laws, Makers. None of this made sense. "Who are the Makers?" Jake asked into his microphone. There was a long pause. Then the alien voice replied with what sounded like surprise. "You do not know of the Makers, the great ones who created the laws? The ones who made all life in the galaxy and chose humans as their special children?" Lisa looked at Jake with wide eyes. "Captain, what should we tell them?" Jake thought quickly. This was the biggest moment in human history. First contact with aliens, and they seemed to think humans were special somehow. "Tell them they can come closer but slowly, and tell them we want to meet face to face." The alien ship moved into orbit around the moon. It was so large it cast a shadow over half the space station. Smaller ships flew out from the big one, heading toward the station's docking bay. Dr. Amy Thompson arrived from Earth just as the first alien ship was docking. She was a scientist who studied different cultures and languages. The government had sent her to help with the meeting. "What do we know about them?" she asked Jake as they walked toward the docking bay. "Not much," Jake replied. "They keep talking about ancient laws and Makers. They act like humans are really important for some reason." The docking bay doors opened with a loud hiss. White mist poured out as the air pressure balanced. Then the aliens stepped through. They were tall, about 7 feet high, with green scales covering their bodies. They walked on 2 legs like humans, but had long tails and clawed hands. Their heads looked like a mix between a lizard and a person. But what surprised Jake the most was how nervous they seemed. The lead alien, who wore fancy golden armor, immediately dropped to one knee. All the other aliens did the same. "Great humans," the leader said in a shaking voice. "I am Commander Zeth Kara. We are honored beyond words to meet the protected children of the Makers. Please accept these humble gifts." The aliens held out boxes made of shining metal. Inside were strange crystals that glowed with their own light and devices that hummed with unknown power. Amy stepped forward carefully. "We thank you for your gifts, but we don't understand. What are these ancient laws you speak of? Who are the Makers?" Zeth Kara looked shocked. He turned to his assistants and spoke in his own language. They seemed to be arguing about something. Finally, he looked back at the humans. "You truly do not know?" he asked sadly. "The knowledge has been lost? But every race in the galaxy knows. The law. It is written in our most sacred books. It is taught to our children before they learn to walk." He reached into his armor and pulled out a small metal tablet. Ancient symbols glowed on its surface. "This is the first law," he said with great respect, "written by the Makers before they left our galaxy. It says that humans are under their eternal protection. No alien may harm a human. No alien may enslave a human. No alien may even speak rudely to a human without facing punishment from the sleeping guardians." Jake felt dizzy. Sleeping guardians? "The Makers' great machines," Zeth Kara explained. "They sleep in the dark between stars, waiting. If any being hurts a human, the guardians wake up. They hunt down the guilty ones. They destroy entire fleets, entire worlds if needed. This has happened before." Amy's hands shook as she wrote notes. "How long have these laws existed?" "Since before our civilizations began," Zeth Kara replied. "Millions of years. The Makers ruled the galaxy once. They built wonders we cannot imagine. Then they vanished. But they left behind their laws and their guardians. And they left behind their children." He looked at Jake and Amy with something like fear and love mixed together. "You are their children. The protected ones. The chosen ones." The meeting continued for hours, but Jake's mind kept returning to one thought. Humans weren't alone in the universe, and somehow, they were the most important species in the galaxy. 6 months had passed since first contact with the aliens. The world had changed completely. Every day brought new ships from different alien races. They all came with gifts. They all spoke of the ancient laws. They all treated humans like precious treasures. Colonel Ryan Davis stood on the deck of the transport ship heading to Nexus Prime, the capital of the Galactic Federation. He wore his best uniform, but he felt small next to the alien honor guard that surrounded him. 12 different species had sent their finest soldiers to protect him during the journey. "This is crazy," muttered Dr. Amy Thompson, who sat beside him. She had been chosen to study why humans were so special to the aliens. "Look at them, Ryan. They're more worried about our safety than we are." Through the window, Ryan could see escort ships flying in perfect formation around their transport. Hundreds of them. The aliens had said it was normal protection for humans traveling through space. "Sir," called Captain Ben Carter from across the room, "you should see this news. Report from Earth." The screen showed crowds of people in New York City. Alien construction crews were tearing down old buildings to make new ones designed for human comfort. The aliens worked for free. They said it was their honor to serve the protected children of the Makers. The Zephyrian Council finished the new hospital yesterday, the news reporter said. "It uses technology 1,000 years ahead of anything we had before. The aliens say every human deserves the best medical care in the galaxy." Ryan shook his head. "They're rebuilding our entire planet, all of it, for free." "Not just Earth," Amy said, looking at her notes. "They're doing the same thing on Mars and the moon colonies. Every place humans live is being upgraded with the best technology they have." The transport ship shuddered slightly as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Through the windows, they could see Nexus Prime ahead. It was a massive space station the size of a small moon. Ships from hundreds of different worlds docked at its ports. "Attention, human passengers," came the voice of the ship's captain over the speakers. "We are approaching Nexus Prime. The welcoming committee is ready for you. Please prepare for the most honored reception in galactic history." Ryan and Amy looked at each other nervously. They were just regular people from Earth, but to the aliens, they represented something much more important. The docking bay was enormous. As their ship landed, Ryan could see thousands of aliens waiting outside. They held banners and signs written in dozens of different languages. All the signs said the same thing in different words. "Welcome to the protected ones, and honor to the children of the makers." "Remember," Amy whispered as they prepared to leave the ship, "act confident. They expect us to be special." The doors opened, and they stepped out into the most amazing sight either of them had ever seen. The aliens didn't just clap or cheer. They all dropped to their knees in perfect silence. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy, all kneeling for two humans from Earth. A tall alien with purple skin and 4 eyes stepped forward. She wore robes covered in golden symbols. "Noble humans," she said in a musical voice, "I am Council Leader Melody Ara. We welcome you to Nexus Prime, the heart of our civilization. Your people honor us by accepting our invitation." Ryan tried to speak, but his throat felt dry. Amy stepped forward instead. "Thank you for welcoming us," she said. "We hope to learn more about the galaxy and our place in it." The alien leader smiled, showing teeth like small diamonds. "Your place is at the center of everything, honored ones. Come, we have prepared special quarters for you. No expense has been spared." As they walked through the station, Ryan noticed how everything changed around them. Aliens would stop whatever they were doing and bow. Security guards would rush ahead to clear the path. Important-looking officials would interrupt their meetings just to catch a glimpse of the humans walking by. "This is insane," Ryan whispered to Amy. "They treat us like we're royalty." "Better than royalty," Amy replied quietly. "Royalty can be overthrown. We're treated like gods." They were taken to a section of the station that had been completely rebuilt in the last 6 months. Everything was designed for human comfort. The gravity was set to Earth normal. The air smelled like a spring day. The walls were painted in soft colors that relaxed human eyes. "This entire district was constructed for your people," Melody Ara explained as they walked. "We studied human psychology and biology to make it perfect for you. 15,000 workers labored day and night to finish it in time." Their quarters were bigger than most houses on Earth. The rooms were filled with furniture from a dozen different worlds, all chosen because human testing had shown they were comfortable for human bodies. That evening, they attended a formal dinner with the Galactic Council. The main hall held representatives from over 200 different species, but the only table in the center of the room was set for 2 humans. "Before we eat," announced the council leader, "we must read the sacred law as we do at every gathering where humans are present." The entire hall stood. Thousands of aliens spoke together in their own languages, but somehow Ryan could understand them all. "No harm must befall the humans. They are the protected children of those who came before. Their safety is our highest duty. Their happiness is our greatest goal. This law stands above all others. This law will never change." As the ceremony ended, Amy leaned toward Ryan. "I'm starting to understand something," she whispered. "This isn't just about protecting us. They worship us." Ryan nodded slowly. Through the large windows of the hall, he could see ships arriving and leaving Nexus Prime. Every ship that carried humans had massive escorts. Every human passenger was treated like the most important cargo in the galaxy. "The question is," Ryan said quietly, "what happens when we find out why?" Dr. Kevin Walsh stood at the edge of a massive hole in the ground on the dead planet Kethmaran. The alien archaeologists working with him seemed nervous about being there. They kept looking around as if expecting something terrible to happen. "Are you sure this is safe?" asked Veltar, a six-legged alien scientist. "This world has been forbidden for so long. Maybe we should leave." Kevin adjusted his helmet and checked his breathing equipment. "The Galactic Council gave us permission to explore here. They said humans can go anywhere we want, remember?" Veltar's tentacles twitched with worry. "Yes, but this is a maker world, the last maker world. Even our oldest legends say to stay away from this place." Kevin looked down into the hole. It went deeper than their lights could reach. Strange metal structures stuck out from the walls, covered in the same glowing symbols they had seen in alien holy books. "That's exactly why we need to explore it," Kevin said. "If we want to understand why humans are so special, we need to learn about these makers." The team slowly descended into the underground complex. Their lights revealed corridors that stretched for miles in every direction. The walls were covered in pictures that seemed to move when Kevin looked at them directly. "My God," whispered Dr. Rachel Brooks, the other human on the team. She was studying a wall covered in symbols. "Kevin, look at this. These aren't just pictures. They're some kind of recording system." Kevin walked over to where Rachel was standing. When he got close to the wall, the symbols began to glow brighter. Suddenly, images appeared in the air above them. The alien team members stepped back in fear, but Kevin and Rachel moved closer. The images showed beings that looked almost human, but taller and more beautiful. They wore clothes made of light and carried tools that seemed to bend reality around them. "The Makers," Veltar whispered. "Those are the Makers." The images changed, showing the same beings building massive ships and cities that floated in space. They created new stars and moved planets like toys. Their technology was beyond anything the current galaxy could imagine. Then the images showed something else. The Makers were creating life. They took simple chemicals and turned them into complex beings. They made thousands of different species and placed them on worlds across the galaxy. "They made all of us," Rachel said in amazement. "Every alien species in the galaxy. The Makers created them all." But the images weren't finished. They showed the Makers working on one final project. On a small blue planet, they carefully shaped a new kind of life. They took their time with this species, making small changes over millions of years. "Earth," Kevin said quietly. "They're showing us Earth." The images showed early humans developing and growing. The Makers watched over them carefully, protecting them from dangers and guiding their development. But then something strange happened in the recording. The Makers began to change. Their bodies became transparent, then turned into pure light. One by one, they disappeared from the physical world, leaving behind only their technology and their laws. "Where did they go?" Rachel asked. The recording answered her question. New images showed the Makers ascending to a higher level of existence, becoming beings of pure energy and thought. But before they left, they created something special, massive. Machines appeared in the images, thousands of them hidden throughout the galaxy. The recording showed that these machines had one purpose: to protect humans until they were ready to inherit what the Makers had left behind. Veltar translated the symbols appearing on the walls. "It says humans carry the Makers' genetic code. All the potential the Makers had, humans will develop in time, but only if they are kept safe while they grow." Kevin felt dizzy. "We're their children, their actual genetic children." "More than that," Rachel said, pointing to new symbols on the wall. "According to this, every human has dormant abilities, powers that will wake up when humanity is ready. The Makers designed us to be their successors." The recording continued, showing the present day. It revealed the locations of Maker machines hidden throughout the galaxy. Some were disguised as dead space rocks. Others were buried on planets or hidden in gas clouds. All of them were watching and waiting. "There are thousands of them," Veltar said with growing fear. "Defense platforms, weapons that could destroy entire star systems, all programmed to protect humans." Suddenly, alarms began sounding on their equipment. Kevin looked at his scanner and saw ships approaching the planet from deep space. Lots of ships. We need to leave, Veltar said urgently. Those are hive ships, Queen Zath's forces. They're not supposed to be in this sector. Kevin and Rachel quickly gathered samples of the Maker technology. When Kevin touched one of the glowing crystals, it activated immediately, responding to his human DNA. The crystal began to hum with power. The technology recognizes us, Rachel said excitedly. It's coded to human genetics. We can study it later, Veltar said, pulling them toward the exit. The Hive faction has been asking dangerous questions about humans lately. If they find us here with Maker technology, it could mean trouble. As their ship left Kethmaran, Kevin watched the planet shrink behind them. They had found some answers, but those answers led to bigger questions. If humans were really the genetic children of the Makers, what did that mean for the rest of the galaxy? And more importantly, what would happen if someone tried to stop humanity from claiming their inheritance? In space around them, hidden sensors detected the human ship leaving the forbidden world. Deep in the darkness between stars, ancient machines began to stir. The Maker's guardians were awakening, just as they had been programmed to do millions of years ago. The protection of their children was about to be tested. Captain Steve Harrison was checking the morning reports on his ship when every screen in the bridge turned red. Warning signals blared through the speakers. His crew rushed to their stations as emergency messages flooded in from across the galaxy. "Captain, we're getting distress calls from everywhere," called out Lieutenant Dan Cooper. "Hive faction ships are under attack. Something is destroying entire fleets." Steve looked at the tactical display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked where Hive ships had been operating just hours ago. Now those dots were disappearing one by one. "Who's attacking them?" Steve asked. "That's the problem, sir," Dan replied. "Nobody knows. The attacking ships don't match any known designs. They just appear, destroy everything, then vanish." Dr. Patricia Lee's voice came through the communication system from Earth. "Steve, we need to talk immediately. Something terrible is happening." The main screen switched to show Patricia in her office. Behind her, other scientists were running around with papers and data tablets. Everyone looked frightened. "Patricia, what's going on?" Steve asked. "The precursor machines have activated," she said quickly. "The ancient defense systems the Makers left behind. They're hunting down every member of the Hive faction in the galaxy." Steve felt cold. "Why now?" 3 days ago, Hive forces captured a human research team on the edge of the galaxy, Patricia explained. Dr. Chris Martinez and his crew, they were taken to a Hive research station for experiments. The screen changed to show recordings from the captured research station. Steve watched in horror as insect-like Hive soldiers dragged human scientists through metal corridors. The humans looked terrified and hurt. "The moment the first human was harmed," Patricia continued, "every precursor defense platform in the galaxy came online. They've been sleeping for millions of years, but they remember their purpose." New images appeared on the screen. Massive structures that had looked like dead space rocks were opening up, revealing weapons that glowed with terrible energy. Ships the size of cities emerged from hiding places between stars. "How many of these machines are there?" Steve asked. "Thousands, maybe tens of thousands," Patricia replied. "They were hidden everywhere, in asteroid fields, inside gas giants, buried on dead moons. The Makers built an entire army and left it sleeping until humans needed protection. On the bridge, the communication officer received a priority message. "Captain, we're getting a transmission from Admiral Rodriguez. He wants all human ships to return to protected space immediately." Steve nodded. "Set course for Earth. Best speed." As the ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, Steve watched the tactical display. The red dots representing Hive forces continued to disappear. The precursor machines were methodical and merciless. They didn't accept surrender. They didn't take prisoners. They simply erased every Hive ship and station they found. "Sir," called out the navigation officer, "we're receiving a message from the captured research station. It's Dr. Martinez. The screen showed a human man in a torn science uniform. Behind him, the station's corridors were filled with smoke and sparks. "This is Dr. Chris Martinez," he said breathlessly. "If anyone can hear this, the precursor machines are here. They're rescuing us. But what they're doing to the Hive soldiers is unbelievable." The camera shook as explosions echoed through the station. Through a window, Chris could see small silver spheres floating through space toward the station. "They're not ships," Chris continued. "They're some kind of robots. They just phase through the station walls like they're not there. The Hive soldiers are trying to fight them, but their weapons pass right through." The screen flickered as more explosions rocked the station. Chris grabbed the camera and ran down a corridor. Through doorways, Steve could see Hive soldiers firing desperately at floating silver spheres that seemed to ignore their attacks. "They're taking us to escape pods," Chris reported. "The machines are being very gentle with humans, but the Hive soldiers." He paused as a terrible sound echoed through the station. "The machines are making them disappear, not just killing them, making them not exist." The transmission cut off. Steve stared at the blank screen, feeling sick. Hours later, they received confirmation that all humans on the research station had been safely evacuated. The station itself had been completely destroyed, along with every Hive soldier on board. Similar reports came from across the galaxy. Hive military bases, research centers, and fleets were being systematically eliminated. The precursor machines showed no mercy and accepted no negotiation. Dr. Patricia Lee appeared on screen again, this time from the Galactic Council headquarters on Nexus Prime. "The Council is in emergency session," she reported. "Every alien leader is terrified. They're seeing what happens when someone breaks the law about protecting humans." "What's the Council's position?" Steve asked. "Complete support for the precursor." "Response," Patricia replied. "They're saying the Hive faction brought this on themselves by violating the most sacred law in the galaxy. Some council members are actually relieved." Relieved? They've been worried about the Hive faction for years. Queen Zacht had been gathering power and questioning human rights. Now that problem has been solved permanently. Steve looked at his crew. They were all listening to the conversation with mixed expressions of awe and fear. "How long will this continue?" he asked. "Until every member of the Hive faction is eliminated," Patricia answered. "The precursor machines don't distinguish between soldiers and civilians. They're programmed to remove any threat to human safety completely and permanently." As if to prove her point, new reports arrived showing the Hive home world under attack. The planet's defense systems, built over thousands of years, were being destroyed in minutes by weapons that turned matter into energy. "The makers really meant it," Steve said quietly. "No harm must befall humans. Any harm at all." Patricia nodded grimly. "The galaxy is learning what absolute protection really means, and they're all very grateful they're not the ones being punished." 3 years had passed since the Hive faction was completely eliminated from the galaxy. The name Zacht was now spoken only in whispers, as a warning about what happened to those who harmed humans. Every alien child learned the story in school. Every adult remembered the fear they felt watching entire worlds disappear. Admiral Tony Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the human flagship New Earth, watching as a mixed fleet of human and alien ships patrolled the outer rim of the galaxy. The Human Protection Fleet had become the most powerful military force in known space, not because humans demanded it, but because every alien race insisted on it. "Admiral, we have a priority message from Dr. Sandra Clark on the research station," called out Commander Lisa Brown from her position at communications. "She says it's urgent." Tony nodded. "Put her through." The main screen showed Dr. Clark standing in front of a massive piece of precursor technology that hummed with energy. Behind her, human and alien scientists worked together on equipment that seemed to bend light around itself. "Tony, we've made a breakthrough," Sandra said excitedly. "We've managed to activate the main communication array, the one the precursors left behind on Titan." "What kind of communication array?" Tony asked. The kind that reaches across dimensions, Sandra replied. We're in contact with the Makers themselves. Tony felt his heart skip a beat. The Makers are still alive? In a way, Sandra said. They evolved beyond physical existence millions of years ago. They exist as pure consciousness now, in a realm we can barely understand. But they've been watching us. The screen changed to show a recording of the communication. Strange symbols flowed across the display, translating themselves into human language. Children of our blood, the message began. We greet you across the void between dimensions. You have grown well. The time of protection is ending. The time of inheritance begins. Tony leaned forward. What does that mean? Sandra appeared back on screen. According to the message, humans were designed to replace the Makers as guardians of the galaxy. Every human carries dormant genetic abilities that will activate when our species reaches emotional and spiritual maturity. What kind of abilities? The same ones the Makers had, Sandra said quietly. Control over matter and energy, the power to create and reshape reality, the ability to transcend physical limitations. Tony stared at the screen. You're saying humans will become gods? Not gods, Sandra corrected. Guardians, protectors. The Makers created all the species in the galaxy, but they also gave them free will. Someone needs to watch over them, guide them, protect them from destroying themselves. The message continued playing in the background. The great machines that protected you will now serve you, it said. Take your place as shepherds of the stars. Help the younger races grow as we helped you grow. Captain Alex Turner's voice came through the ship's communication system. Admiral, you need to see this. We're getting reports from across the galaxy. The screen split to show Alex on his ship, the newly built human dreadnought, Prometheus. Behind him, his crew was monitoring dozens of signals. The precursor defense platforms are changing, Alex reported. They're not weapons anymore. They're transforming into something else. New images appeared showing the massive machines that had destroyed the Hive faction. Their weapon arrays were folding away, replaced by different equipment. Tools for building instead of destroying. Devices for healing instead of harming. They're becoming construction platforms, Alex continued. Medical stations, research facilities, everything we need to help other species develop and grow. Tony looked back at Sandra. How long do we have? The activation is already beginning, she said. Humans born in the last few years are showing signs of enhanced abilities. Nothing dramatic yet, just increased intelligence, empathy, and intuition. But it's growing stronger with each generation. What about the rest of the galaxy? How are they taking this news? Sandra smiled. Better than you might expect. The alien races have known this day would come eventually. It's written in their oldest prophecies. They're actually relieved. Relieved? Think about it, Tony. They've spent millions of years knowing that humans were special but not knowing why. Now they understand. We're not just their protected guests anymore. We're their future leaders and protectors. A new transmission came in from Earth. Dr. Jennifer Scott appeared on screen from the United Nations building in New York. Behind her, representatives from dozens of alien species waited quietly. Admiral Rodriguez, Jennifer said formally. I'm calling to inform you that the Galactic Council has unanimously voted to begin the transition of leadership to humanity. Tony felt overwhelmed. Jennifer, we're not ready for this. We don't have a choice, she replied gently. The Maker's message was clear. This is our destiny, our responsibility. The question isn't whether we're ready, but whether we're brave enough to accept it. The screen showed scenes from around the galaxy. On hundreds of worlds, human teachers were arriving to help alien children learn. Human doctors were sharing advanced medical knowledge. Human engineers were working with alien technicians to build better cities and cleaner energy systems. It's already happening, Jennifer continued. Humans are taking leadership roles everywhere, not because we demanded it, but because other species are asking us to. Tony looked around his bridge at his crew. They were young humans and experienced aliens working together as equals. In a few generations, the balance would shift. Humans would become the senior partners, the guides, the protectors. "There's something else," Sandra said from her research station. "The makers left us a final gift, a complete database of all their knowledge, technology, science, philosophy, art, everything they learned in millions of years of existence." "Where is this database?" Sandra pointed to the glowing crystal in her hand. "Every piece of precursor technology contains part of it. When humans touch these crystals, the knowledge transfers directly to our minds. We'll learn everything we need to know to be good guardians." Tony nodded slowly. The weight of responsibility felt enormous, but so did the opportunity. Humanity would become the caretakers of an entire galaxy full of different species and worlds. "Begin the transition," he said finally. "Send word to all human ships and stations. We have work to do." 5 years after the Great Transition began, the galaxy looked very different. Captain Maria Santos walked through the halls of New Geneva Station, humanity's first fully operational galactic administration center. The station orbited between 3 star systems, serving as a meeting point for dozens of different species. Through the large windows, Maria could see construction ships building new trade routes and communication networks. Half the crews were human, half were alien volunteers. They worked together better than anyone had expected. "Captain Santos," called Dr. Paul Wright as he approached with a data tablet. "We have the monthly reports from the integration sectors." Maria took the tablet and scrolled through the information. "How are the new human administrators doing?" "Better than we hoped," Paul replied. "The Zalarian colonies requested 3 more human advisors last week. The Aquatic Federation wants help designing underwater cities that work for both their species and visiting humans." Maria nodded. It had taken time, but most alien species now welcomed human guidance. The few who had been worried about human leadership had changed their minds after seeing the results. "Any problems?" "Minor ones," Paul said. "Some of the older alien leaders still feel strange taking orders from humans who are younger than their grandchildren. But even they admit our decisions have been fair and helpful." A soft chime echoed through the station's speakers. "All personnel to Observation Deck 7, came the announcement. "The ceremony is beginning." Maria and Paul joined hundreds of humans and aliens gathering at the large observation deck. Outside, they could see a beautiful sight. A new world was being born. The massive precursor construction platforms worked together like a symphony. They took raw materials from asteroids and gas clouds, then shaped them into solid matter. Slowly, a new planet was forming in the empty space between 2 older worlds. "It's amazing," whispered Janet Miller, a young human engineer. 6 months ago, this was just empty space. Now look at it. The new planet already had oceans and continents. Precursor weather machines were creating the first storms and winds. In a few more weeks, the first plants and animals would be introduced. "This is the 15th new world we've created this year," Paul said proudly. "All of them designed to support multiple species living together." Dr. Ellen Cooper joined them at the viewing windows. She was one of the new generation of humans who had been born after the awakening began. Her abilities were much stronger than older humans. "I can feel the planet's life force beginning," Ellen said quietly. "The precursor machines are following the original maker protocols. This world will be perfect for the refugee populations from the torn systems." Maria looked at Ellen with a mixture of pride and wonder. The young woman could sense things that older humans couldn't. She could communicate directly with precursor technology just by thinking at it. Most humans born in the last 5 years showed similar abilities. "How many refugees are we expecting?" Maria asked. "About 50,000, Ellen replied. 3 different species whose homeworlds were destroyed by natural disasters. They've been living on crowded space stations for years. And they'll all live together on the new planet?" "Yes." The Maker's database showed us how to design worlds where different species can share the same environment. It's all about understanding what each species really needs. A new voice joined the conversation. "The ceremony is ready to begin," said Ambassador Tethmek, a tall alien with silver skin and large blue eyes. He was one of the alien representatives, who worked closely with human administrators. The observation deck grew quiet as Dr. Jennifer Scott's voice came through the speakers. She was now the first human galactic coordinator, responsible for overseeing the transition across multiple star systems. "Today we celebrate not just the birth of a new world," Jennifer's voice said, "but the birth of a new way of living. For millions of years, species in our galaxy have fought over resources and territory. Today, we prove that cooperation creates abundance." On the screen, images showed the 3 refugee species watching from their temporary homes on nearby space stations. Adults held children up to the windows so they could see their new world being born. "The Makers left us more than technology," Jennifer continued. "They left us the knowledge of how to create harmony between different forms of life. They showed us that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker." Ellen closed her eyes and extended her consciousness toward the new planet. Through her enhanced abilities, she could sense the planet's potential, the places where cities would grow, the areas where forests would flourish, the spots where different species would meet and become friends. "I can see the future," Ellen said softly. "Children from all 3 species playing together, scientists sharing discoveries, artists creating new forms of beauty that no single species could imagine alone." Maria smiled. This was what the Makers had intended. Not human domination, but human guidance toward a better way of living. "Ambassador Tethmek," Maria said, "what do your people think about all these changes?" The silver-skinned alien considered the question carefully. "At first we were worried," he admitted. "We had ruled ourselves for thousands of years. We thought humans would try to control us the way the old empires did. And now? Now we understand the difference," Tethmek replied. "The old empires conquered through fear and force. Humans lead through wisdom and care. You make us want to be better than we were." The ceremony concluded with the first rainfall on the new planet. The precursor weather machines had created clouds that now released water onto the newly formed continents. In a few years, this empty space would be a thriving world full of life and hope. "The next generation of humans will be even more capable than Ellen's," Paul said as they watched the rain fall. "By the time our children are adults, they'll be able to create wonders we can't even imagine." Maria nodded. The transition was working. Humans were learning to be the guardians the galaxy needed, and the galaxy was learning to trust them with that responsibility. "The Makers chose well," she said quietly. 10 years had passed since humanity accepted their role as galactic guardians. The changes were visible everywhere. Captain Laura Peterson stood in the main hall of Unity Prime, the massive space station that served as the galaxy's new capital. The hall was filled with beings from hundreds of different worlds, all working together on projects that would have been impossible before. "Captain Peterson," called out Dr. Mark Thompson as he approached with a group of young humans. "The new Academy graduates are ready for their assignments." Laura looked at the young people standing before her. They were the first generation to be fully trained as galactic guardians from childhood. Their abilities far exceeded those of older humans. "Where would you like to serve?" Laura asked the group. A young woman named Emma Davis stepped forward. Her eyes glowed slightly with inner light, a sign of her advanced capabilities. "We'd like to go to the frontier sectors, Captain, the unexplored regions beyond the spiral arm." "That's dangerous territory," Laura warned. "We don't know what's out there." "That's exactly why we need to go," replied another graduate named Ryan Clark. "The Makers database shows signs of other galaxies with intelligent life. If we're going to be true guardians, we need to make contact with them." Dr. Mark nodded approvingly. "They're right, Laura. The next phase of our development requires reaching beyond our own galaxy. Laura pulled up a holographic map showing the local galaxy group. Their own galaxy was just one of dozens visible in the display. Several showed signs of organized civilizations. "What do the Alien Council members think about this?" Laura asked. "They support it completely," Mark replied. Ambassador Velsara, from the Crystal Coalition, said her people have been waiting for this moment for centuries. They always believed someone would eventually unite the galaxies in peace. Emma stepped closer to the holographic display. Without touching any controls, she expanded the image with her thoughts. The map now showed detailed information about nearby galaxies and the civilizations they contained. "Look at this one," Emma said, pointing to a spiral galaxy similar to their own. "It's full of different species, but they're all at war with each other. Millions of worlds destroyed, billions of lives lost. They need what we can offer them," Ryan added. "The knowledge of how to live together, the technology to create instead of destroy." Laura felt the weight of responsibility that came with every decision humans made now. They were no longer just protecting their own galaxy. They were being asked to bring peace to the entire universe. "How do we even begin?" she asked. Dr. Sarah Wilson joined the conversation. She was one of the enhanced humans who could communicate directly with precursor technology. "The makers left instructions for this too," she said. "Deep in the database, there are protocols for intergalactic contact." Sarah touched a glowing crystal embedded in the wall. Immediately, new information flowed into the room's displays. The screens showed massive ships designed to travel between galaxies, carrying teams of humans and their alien partners. "These are the Harmony vessels," Sarah explained. "Ships that can cross the void between galaxies and establish permanent bridges of communication and trade." "How long would it take to build them?" Laura asked. "The precursor construction platforms could have the first one ready in 6 months," Sarah replied. "But we need to be careful. Other galaxies might not understand our intentions. They might see us as invaders." Emma smiled confidently. "That's why humans lead the missions. The makers designed us to be naturally trustworthy. Other species can sense our intentions even if they don't understand our language." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from the observation deck. "All senior staff to viewing station 1, came the announcement. "We have visitors." Laura and her team quickly made their way to the observation deck. Through the massive windows, they could see something extraordinary. A ship unlike anything they had ever seen was approaching Unity Prime. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, made of materials that seemed to shift between solid matter and pure energy. "It's not from our galaxy," Dr. Mark said quietly, studying the sensor readings. "The technology is completely different from anything in the Maker's database." Admiral Patricia Ross joined them, followed by several alien ambassadors. "We've been trying to communicate with them for the past hour," she reported. "They're not responding to any of our standard contact protocols." "Let me try," Emma said. She closed her eyes and extended her consciousness toward the strange ship. Her enhanced abilities allowed her to sense thoughts and emotions across vast distances. After a few moments, Emma opened her eyes with surprise. "They're afraid," she said. "Terrified, actually. They think we're the ancient destroyers their legends warned them about." "Destroyers?" Laura asked. "Their galaxy was once visited by beings with godlike powers who nearly wiped out all life," Emma explained. "They've been hiding from advanced civilizations ever since." Dr. Sarah touched her crystal again, accessing more information from the Makers database. "I'm finding references to this," she said. "Millions of years ago, some makers became corrupted by power. They tried to control other galaxies by force before the remaining makers stopped them." "So they think we're those corrupted makers?" Laura asked. "Yes," Emma replied. "But I can feel their confusion, too. They expected destroyers, but they're sensing something different from us. Hope instead of fear. Love instead of hatred." Admiral Ross stepped forward. "What do you recommend?" Emma and Ryan looked at each other, then back at the adults. "Let us go aboard their ship," Emma said. "Alone. If they see that the new Guardians are young and peaceful, they might trust us." "Absolutely not," Laura said immediately. "It's too dangerous." "Captain," Ryan said respectfully, "this is why we were trained. This is what the next generation of humans was designed for. We can handle this." The strange ship suddenly changed direction, moving closer to Unity Prime. Through the viewing windows, they could see lights flashing in complex patterns on its hull. Emma watched the patterns carefully. "They're trying to decide whether to run or fight," she said. "This is our chance to show them who we really are." Laura looked around at the alien ambassadors. All of them nodded encouragingly. They trusted human judgment completely. "All right," Laura said finally. "But you take a full diplomatic escort with you, and you stay in constant communication." Emma smiled. "Don't worry, Captain. We're going to make some new friends today." 20 years had passed since Emma Davis and Ryan Clark made first contact with the beings from the neighboring galaxy. What started as a fearful encounter had become the foundation of the Universal Peace Alliance, spanning dozens of galaxies and thousands of different species. Dr. Emma Davis, now the first human Universal Coordinator, stood in the Grand Assembly of Unity Prime. The massive hall had been expanded several times to accommodate representatives from 47 different galaxies. Beings of every imaginable shape and form filled the chamber, all working together under human guidance. "The expansion into the Outer Rim galaxies is proceeding ahead of schedule," reported Ambassador Ryan Clark from his position at the central podium. "The Crystalline Collective has agreed to share their energy manipulation technology, and the gas giant nomads are teaching us their methods of space-time navigation." Emma nodded as she reviewed the reports flowing across her enhanced consciousness. Through her advanced abilities, she could monitor activities across multiple galaxies simultaneously. The information came not through technology, but through the expanded awareness that all humans now possessed. "What about the resistance movements?" asked Admiral Lisa Chen, one of the few older humans still in active service. "Are we still having problems in Galaxy Sector 7? "Not resistance exactly," Emma replied thoughtfully. "More like confusion. Some species in that region have been isolated for so long that they don't understand the concept of cooperation. They think any offer of help must be a trick." Dr. Michael Torres, a member of the newest generation of human guardians, stood up from his seat. His abilities were so advanced that he barely needed his physical body anymore. Sometimes he appeared as pure light when he concentrated deeply. "I've been working with the isolated species in Sector 7, Michael said. "The problem isn't that they don't want peace. They literally can't imagine it. Their languages don't even have words for concepts like mutual benefit or voluntary cooperation." "How do we teach them?" asked Ambassador Velterra, a graceful alien whose species had been among the first to welcome human leadership decades ago. "Slowly and carefully," Emma replied. "We start by showing them small examples. We help them solve problems they couldn't solve alone. We prove that cooperation works better than conflict." The main screen in the assembly hall activated, showing a real-time view of Galaxy Sector 7. What had once been a region of constant warfare was now showing signs of change. Former enemy species were working together on joint projects, building trade routes and communication networks. "It's working," observed Dr. Jennifer Walsh, studying the data streams. "Look at the Crimson Nebula region. 3 species that had been fighting for 1,000 years just completed their first shared space station." Emma smiled with satisfaction. This was what the makers had envisioned when they designed humanity. Not to rule through force, but to guide through example and wisdom. "Speaking of examples," Ryan said, "we have a special ceremony today. The children from New Harmony want to show us their latest project." The assembly hall's viewing screens switched to show a beautiful garden world called New Harmony. It was one of the first planets created specifically for interspecies cooperation. Children from dozens of different worlds lived and learned there, together. On the screen, a group of young beings came into view. There were human children alongside alien children of every description. Some walked on legs, others floated through the air, and a few existed as patterns of living energy. "Hello, Universal Assembly," said a human girl named Katie Robinson, who appeared to be about 10 years old. "We want to show you what we built together." The camera pulled back to reveal an incredible sight. The children had created a living sculpture that defied physics. It was part building, part artwork, and part living organism. It grew and changed as they watched, responding to the thoughts and emotions of everyone nearby. "We used creativity from the Dreamweavers," Katie explained, pointing to several floating creatures that looked like jellyfish made of starlight. "Engineering skills from the Rock Builders." She gestured toward small, sturdy aliens with crystal-like bodies and life-shaping abilities from the Garden Makers. A group of plant-like beings waved their leaf-covered arms happily. "But mostly," added a young alien who communicated through color changes in his skin, "we used friendship. That's what makes everything work better." The adults in the assembly hall watched in amazement as the children's creation continued to evolve. It was beautiful beyond description, and it represented something that no single species could have achieved alone. "This is our future," Emma said quietly to the assembly. "Not just humans leading other species, but all species learning from each other and creating wonders together." Ambassador Veltara spoke up. "The children understand something that took us adults much longer to learn. They don't see differences as problems to be solved. They see them as gifts to be shared." Dr. Michael Torres nodded in agreement. "The makers were wise to choose humans as guardians, not because we're superior, but because we're naturally curious about others. We want to understand and help rather than control." The ceremony continued with reports from across the known universe. New galaxies were being contacted every month, ancient conflicts were being resolved, technologies and knowledge were being shared freely among all species. "What's our next major goal?" asked Admiral Chen. Emma consulted the vast network of information flowing through her consciousness. "The Deep Field Project," she replied. "We've detected signs of intelligent life in galaxies so distant that light from them takes billions of years to reach us. If we can establish contact with them, we'll complete the universal network." "How do we communicate across such distances?" Ryan asked. "The same way the makers did," Emma replied with a smile. "Through consciousness itself. The advanced human abilities allow us to transcend physical limitations like time and space." The assembly hall fell quiet as everyone contemplated the magnitude of what they were attempting. A truly universal civilization where every form of intelligent life could participate and contribute. "The makers would be proud," Dr. Torres said finally. "We've fulfilled their vision and gone beyond it." Emma looked around the great hall at the thousands of beings working together in harmony. Humans and aliens, young and old, all united in the cause of bringing peace and prosperity to the universe. "The protection phase is over," she announced to the assembly. "Humans are no longer untouchable because no one wants to harm us. We've become partners with every species we've met. We've become family." The assembly erupted in sounds of approval from hundreds of different species. Musical tones, harmonic vibrations, flashing lights, and complex scents filled the air as each being expressed joy in their own way. Outside the Great Hall, construction ships worked on expanding Unity Prime once again. Soon, they would need space for representatives from the distant galaxies. The universal family was still growing, and there was always room for more. Emma smiled as she felt the consciousness of every human across the universe, all working together to build a better tomorrow, for everyone. The children of the makers had found their purpose at last.